The giant space station called Kepler Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons and had been built for one special purpose. Every year, representatives from across the galaxy came here for the most important ceremony in known space. They called it the Apex Presentation. Admiral Zektar stood at the center of the massive dome-shaped hall. His reptilian skin was covered in old scars, each one a reminder of his own world's deadliest creature. His yellow eyes swept across the gathered aliens. There were hundreds of them, representing dozens of different species from across the galaxy. The rules of the ceremony were ancient and simple. Each species had to bring their homeworld's most dangerous predator, the creature that evolution had shaped into the perfect killer, the being that sat at the top of their planet's food chain. This wasn't just for show. The results would decide who got the best trade routes, the richest mining rights, and the most respect for the next year. Welcome, representatives of the Galactic Council. Zektar's voice echoed through the biodome. The massive hall could contain even the largest and most deadly creatures safely. Force fields and containment systems were built into every surface. Today, we honor the ancient tradition that shows the strength of our worlds. In the viewing areas, delegates whispered among themselves. Some wore environmental suits to breathe. Others had mechanical parts replacing limbs that their own apex predators had taken. A few floated in tanks of liquid that kept their aquatic bodies alive in the station's atmosphere. The tradition was older than most civilizations. Long ago, when species first met in space, there had been many wars. Too many. The Apex Presentation was created to avoid those conflicts. Instead of fighting, species would show their strength by presenting their world's ultimate predator. It was a way to prove power without destruction. The strongest apex predators, Zektar continued, earn their species' honor and resources. The weak. He let the word hang in the air like a threat. Everyone knew what happened to species that brought weak predators. They were given fewer colonies, smaller trade territories, and less respect. In some cases, they were placed under the protection of stronger species, which meant giving up their independence. The dome's lighting changed to a deep red. This signaled that the presentations would begin soon. Around the hall, containment units waited. Each one held something that had never been seen outside its home world. Things that had evolved for millions of years to become perfect killers. A delegate from the Molten Worlds raised a heat-resistant arm. Steam rose from his rocky skin. Admiral, the bioburn awaits presentation. Our world's core dweller grows restless. Patience, Delegate Core, Zektar replied. All will be revealed in proper order. Near the human section, Ambassador Sarah Chun checked her simple pet carrier one more time. Through the mesh front, orange fur was visible. Unlike the massive containment units around the hall, her carrier could fit under an airplane seat. Some nearby delegates had noticed it and were already whispering. The Crystalline Collective's representative, a being made of living diamond, turned its geometric head toward Chun. Its voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Human delegate, surely that container is not your presentation? Chun smiled but said nothing. She had learned that sometimes silence was more powerful than words. Across the hall, the Vorthan Empire's representative prepared his shadow creature. The Void Stalker existed partly outside normal space. Even in its containment field, it flickered in and out of reality. Just looking at it made other delegates feel cold and afraid. Each year, Zektar announced, we see evolution's greatest achievements. Predators that have survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and the rise and fall of civilizations. Today, we see what 10 million years of natural selection creates. The biodome's sensors were running constant scans. They measured strength, speed, killing methods, and survival capabilities. The results would be displayed for all to see. There was no lying in the Apex presentation. The technology was too advanced and the stakes too high. A tentacled being from the deep current systems gurgled through its translator device. Our trench devastator is not fed in 6 months. We request immediate presentation before it breaks containment. Other delegates moved away from that section. Everyone had heard stories about the trench devastator. It was said to hunt by sensing fear across star systems. The longer it went without food, the more dangerous it became. The ceremony will proceed in the established order, Zektar stated firmly. No exceptions. But even as he spoke, he wondered about the human presentation. Humanity was still relatively new to the galactic community. They had only joined the Council 50 years ago. Their planet, Earth, was known to be dangerous, covered in deadly weather and unstable tectonics. Surely they had brought something worthy of respect. Chun noticed the Admiral's gaze and gave him a small wave. Inside her carrier, something meowed softly. The sound was barely audible over the noise of the crowd, but somehow several nearby delegates heard it. They looked confused. That sound hadn't been threatening at all. "Citizens of the galaxy," Zektar called out, his voice carrying to every corner of the dome. "Let the Apex presentation begin. Today, we discover which worlds breed the strongest predators. Today, we see the face of true evolutionary dominance." The lights dimmed further, and spotlight beams began to move across the containment units. Each one held something that had killed thousands of creatures on its homeworld. Each one represented millions of years of evolution's drive to create the perfect predator dot as the ceremony began. No one was thinking about the small orange creature in the simple pet carrier. No one except Chun, who was quietly confident that they were all about to learn something very important about what it truly meant to be an apex predator. The first species stepped forward to present their killer, and the galaxy held its breath. The first species to present was the Molten Worlds Coalition. Delegate Kor stepped forward, his rocky skin glowing with internal heat. Behind him, a massive containment unit began to open. The temperature in the dome immediately rose by 10 degrees. From the burning core of Volcros Prime, Kor announced, "We present the bioburn." The creature that emerged was unlike anything most delegates had ever seen. It looked like molten lava had somehow gained consciousness and learned to hunt. The bioburn moved like flowing metal, constantly changing shape. Its core temperature was over 2,000 degrees. As it moved, the floor beneath it began to glow red-hot. The bioburn, Kor explained with pride, hunts by melting through solid rock. It can reach temperatures that turn steel into vapor. No armor can stop it. No weapon can harm something that exists as living fire. The dome's sensors displayed the creature's statistics. Strength, maximum. Heat output, extreme. Hunting success rate, 98%. Around the hall, delegates nodded with respect. This was exactly what an apex predator should be. The bioburn demonstrated its abilities by melting a steel block in seconds. When it was done, it flowed back to its containment unit like liquid death. Even Admiral Zektar looked impressed. Next came the Vorthan Empire. Their representative was a tall, being covered in dark robes. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Behold the Void Stalker," he said simply. The containment field dropped, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then delegates began to notice that shadows were moving wrong. Dark shapes flickered at the edges of vision. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in seconds. The Void Stalker existed partially outside normal spacetime. It could appear anywhere without warning. The biodome sensors couldn't even track it properly. The readings kept changing as the creature phased in and out of reality. "It hunts by stepping between dimensions," the Vorthan explained. "Distance means nothing to it. Walls cannot stop it. It appears inside its prey and feeds on their life force. Several delegates shuddered as they watched the demonstration. The Void Stalker made a steel target simply disappear. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Even the atoms seemed to have been erased from existence. When the creature returned to its containment, the delegates were quiet. They had just seen something that could kill them without even being in the same dimension. The Crystalline Collective went next. Their representative created a musical sound as it moved forward. But the music suddenly stopped when their containment unit opened. The Resonance Beast, the crystal being announced. What emerged looked like a walking mountain. The creature was made entirely of diamond-hard crystal, but it moved with fluid grace. As it walked, the entire space station began to vibrate. The sound was low and deep, felt more than heard. Our apex predator, the collective explained, hunts with sound itself. It can shatter bones from a mile away. Its crystalline body can reshape itself to become any weapon. It has hunted for 3 million years and has never known defeat. The Resonance Beast demonstrated by focusing its sonic abilities on a thick steel wall. The wall didn't just break, it turned to powder in seconds. The creature then reformed part of its body into a blade, sharper than any known metal dot, but the most impressive demonstration was yet to come. The creature began to sing, if the deep, reality-shaking vibration could be called singing. The sound was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It made every delegate feel as if their bones might shake apart, but they couldn't stop listening. The deep current systems presented next. Their tentacled delegate gurgled with pride as their containment unit opened. What came out was the stuff of nightmares. The Trench Devastator was massive, dark, and covered in sensors that could detect fear across solar systems. It moved like liquid shadow, but left a trail of something that looked like dissolved matter. This predator, the delegate explained through its translator, feeds on the terror of its prey before consuming them. It can sense fear from incredible distances and track its victims across multiple star systems. The more afraid its prey becomes, the stronger it grows. The creature demonstrated by somehow making every delegate in the hall feel sudden, irrational terror. Even the bravest warriors found themselves sweating. The Trench Devastator grew visibly larger as it fed on their fear. It has never lost a hunt, the delegate added. Fear is the only food it needs, but it prefers to consume its prey while they are still afraid. One by one, more species presented their apex predators. Each one was more terrifying than the last. The Hive Consciousness brought their Swarm Empress, a creature that commanded millions of smaller beings and could think 1,000 thoughts at once. She looked at the assembled delegates and somehow made each one feel like she was calculating exactly how to kill. The Machine Worlds presented the Constructor, a predator that hunted by building traps out of the environment itself. It could turn an entire planet into one giant hunting ground. The Gas Giant Federation showed off their storm. Rider, a creature that lived in constant hurricane winds and could control weather across continents. Each presentation was more impressive than the last. These were predators that had evolved for millions of years. They were perfect killers, ultimate hunters, the absolute apex of their world's evolutionary trees. As the presentations continued, more delegates began to notice the simple pet carrier in the human section. Ambassador Chun sat calmly beside it, occasionally reaching through the mesh to pet whatever was inside. Sometimes, a soft purring sound could be heard. Surely, whispered the collective's representative, the humans do not think to present something so small? But Chun just smiled and continued to wait her turn. Inside the carrier, orange fur shifted as the creature inside settled into a more comfortable position. Around the hall, the galaxy's most dangerous predators had been displayed. Creatures that could melt steel, phase through dimensions, control reality itself. The bar had been set impossibly high, and the humans sat quietly with their pet carrier, Showing no signs of concern, Admiral Zektar looked at the schedule. The human presentation was next. He almost felt sorry for them. How could they possibly compete with what had already been shown? But as he called for the next presentation, Admiral Zektar noticed something odd. Several of the other apex predators, even in their containment units, seemed to be looking toward the human section. It was almost as if they had noticed something too. Admiral Zektar checked his display one more time. Surely there was some mistake. The human presentation was listed as Apex Predator, Domestic Feline, Felis Caudus. That couldn't be right. Earth Coalition, he announced, his voice carrying a hint of confusion. You may present your Apex Predator. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood up slowly and lifted her simple pet carrier. Around the hall, delegates leaned forward to see what incredible creature the humans had brought. After all, Earth was known to be a dangerous world. It had massive storms, deadly creatures, and unstable geology. Surely they had something worthy to present. Chun walked to the center of the biodome. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. The carrier in her hands looked even smaller next to the massive containment units that had held the other predators. Some delegates began to whisper among themselves. Citizens of the galaxy, Chun said in a calm, clear voice. Humanity presents our world's most successful predator. She set the carrier down and opened the front door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a small orange paw emerged, followed by a pink nose that sniffed the air carefully. The creature that stepped out was small, fluffy, and completely ordinary looking. It had orange and white fur, green eyes, and a long tail that curved upward. It looked around the massive hall with mild interest, sat down, and began to clean its front paw with its tongue. The silence in the dome was complete. Then the laughter started. It began with a few quiet chuckles from the back rows, then grew louder. Soon, delegates from dozens of worlds were laughing openly. Some were pointing at the small creature. Others were making jokes in their native languages. This is a joke, rumbled Delegate Core from the Molten Worlds. Steam rose from his rocky skin as his internal temperature increased with anger. The humans mock our sacred tradition. The Vorthan representative's voice cut through the laughter like ice. Surely this cannot be their actual presentation. Where is their real apex predator? Admiral Zektar's yellow eyes narrowed. His scarred hands gripped the podium. Human Ambassador, explain this creature. The small orange cat, apparently unconcerned by the chaos around it, finished cleaning its paw and looked up at the assembled delegates. Its green eyes seemed to study each one with quiet intelligence. Then it yawned, showing tiny white teeth, and lay down in a patch of artificial sunlight. This, Chun said, her voice cutting through the noise, is Mittens. He is indeed our apex predator. The laughter grew louder. Several delegates were now openly insulting the humans. Preposterous, shouted the Crystalline Collective's representative, its diamond body ringing with outrage. We have seen creatures that can melt steel, phase through dimensions, and control reality itself. You bring us this pet. It's not even trying to hunt anything, added the Deep Current delegate. Our trench devastator could consume this creature before it even knew danger was near. The Hive Consciousness delegate spoke with multiple voices at once. Our sensors detect no significant physical capabilities. No enhanced strength, no armored hide, no poisonous secretions. This creature poses no threat to anything larger than a mouse. Admiral Zektar raised one clawed hand for silence. When the noise died down, his voice was cold with barely contained anger. Ambassador Chen, are you seriously claiming that this domestic pet is your world's apex predator? Do you take the Galactic Council for fools? Chen remained calm despite the hostile audience. I am completely serious, Admiral. This is indeed our submission. Then you have made a grave mistake, Zektar replied. Perhaps humanity is not ready for full membership in the Galactic Council. Perhaps you need protection from more advanced species. Around the hall, several delegates nodded in agreement. The Vorthan representative was already calculating how to divide up human territory. The Molten Worlds Coalition was considering which human colonies would make good mining worlds, but Chun didn't look worried. If anything, she seemed more confident than before. With respect, Admiral, she said, the rules state that each species gets to explain their choice before the final judgment. I request permission to present humanity's case. Zektar looked like he wanted to refuse, but the ancient rules were clear. Each species had the right to explain their apex predator. Very well, he growled. But make it quick. We have wasted enough time on this mockery. As Chun prepared to speak, something interesting happened. Mittens stood up, stretched in the way that only cats can stretch, and began to walk around the biodome. Several delegates watched him with puzzled expressions. He wasn't hunting or stalking. He was simply exploring. But as he moved, something strange began to happen. Delegates who had been laughing moments before found themselves watching him with growing interest. There was something oddly compelling about the way he moved. Something graceful and confident. When Mittens approached a group of heavily armored warrior delegates from the battle moons, they instinctively reached down to touch him. Their massive, scarred hands moved with surprising gentleness. "What is it doing?" asked one of the machine world delegates. "Is this some form of psychological warfare?" Chun smiled. "No warfare at all. He's just being himself." Near the crystalline collective section, Mittens paused and began to purr. The sound was soft and rhythmic. The crystal beings, who normally communicated only through harmonic resonance, found the purring strangely peaceful. Even the representative from the deep current systems, a creature that fed on fear, seemed oddly calm when Mittens walked past its section. "This proves nothing," Admiral Zektar declared. But his voice had lost some of its angry edge. "The creature has no hunting ability, no deadly weapons. No." He stopped talking. Mittens had approached the podium and was now sitting directly in front of Zektar, looking up at him with those calm green eyes. Almost without realizing it, Admiral Zektar found himself thinking about how the small creature might be more comfortable. Perhaps the station's air was too dry. Maybe the artificial lighting was too bright. He shook his head sharply, trying to clear his thoughts. What was wrong with him? "Ambassador Chun," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "You may present your explanation." Chun stepped forward, and for the first time since the presentations began, she looked completely confident. "Thank you, Admiral. Now, let me tell you what you're really looking at." Ambassador Chun activated a holographic display that filled the center of the biodome. Images of Earth appeared, showing vast forests, deep oceans, and sprawling cities. "Every species here today brought a predator from their world's wilderness," she began. "Creatures evolved in nature, shaped by natural selection in the wild. But humanity made a different choice." The hologram zoomed in to show Earth's cities, where millions of humans lived and worked. "We brought a predator that evolved in the most dangerous environment on our planet," Chun continued. "Not our jungles or deserts or deep seas. We brought a predator from the most complex, challenging, and psychologically demanding ecosystem that exists." The image changed to show humans and cats living together. Cats sleeping on beds, eating from bowls, playing with toys. "We brought a predator from human civilization itself." Around the hall, delegates looked confused. Near the crystalline collective, Mittens had somehow convinced 3 of the diamond beings to create a small platform for him to sit on. They seemed happy to do it. "This makes no sense," rumbled Delegate Core from the Molten Worlds. Predators are shaped by hunting other creatures, not by living with them. Chun smiled. Exactly. And that's what makes this predator so remarkable. He doesn't hunt other species, Admiral. He hunts us. A wave of confused murmuring rippled through the assembly. Allow me to explain, Chun said, and the hologram changed again. This time, it showed detailed data about human and feline evolution. 12,000 years ago, humans developed agriculture. We built the first permanent settlements. And that's when Mitten's ancestors made a remarkable evolutionary choice. The display showed ancient cats approaching early human villages. They could have remained wild hunters, competing with other predators for prey. Instead, they chose to hunt something far more valuable than meat. They chose to hunt human behavior. The holographic data began to show brain scans, hormone levels, and behavioral patterns. These predators evolved something unprecedented in galactic history. They developed the ability to modify the behavior of another intelligent species. Not through fear or force, but through manipulation so subtle that the prey species believes they are in control. Admiral Zektar's eyes narrowed. Near his feet, Mittens had somehow appeared and was now rubbing against his scaled leg. The Admiral found himself wondering if the cat needed anything. Food? Water? A more comfortable place to rest? He shook his head sharply. What sort of manipulation? Chun gestured, and the hologram displayed a series of brain scans. Watch what happens to human neural activity when exposed to feline vocalizations. The display showed human brains lighting up in specific areas when cats meowed or purred. Hormone levels changed. Stress decreased. Protective instincts activated. These predators learn to trigger our parental responses, Chun explained. They evolve vocalizations that make humans want to feed and protect them. But that's just the beginning. The data changed to show behavioral studies. Humans opening doors for cats, filling food bowls, cleaning waste boxes, providing medical care. Over 12,000 years, Chun continued. They trained humans to provide food, shelter, medical care, and protection. They convinced humans to build special facilities just for them. They made humans transport them across the entire planet. Across the hall, more delegates were noticing Mittens. The Hive Consciousness delegate had somehow started synchronized movements that seemed designed to entertain him. The creature that could process 1,000 thoughts at once was using its vast intelligence to figure out what would make the cat happy. But Admiral, Chun said, her voice growing stronger, that's still not what makes them apex predators. She gestured again, and new data appeared. This time, it showed expansion patterns across Earth and then into space. The real genius is this. They convinced humans to spread their species to every corner of the planet. Earth now has over 1 billion of these predators. They exist on every continent, in every climate, in every human settlement. The crystalline collective representative chimed with confusion. But they are dependent on humans for survival. How does that make them apex predators? Chun's smile grew wider. Are they dependent? Or have they simply made themselves so valuable that humans will never let them go extinct? She activated another display. This one showed the flow of resources on Earth. Humans spend over 100 billion credits annually on cat care. We have built industries devoted entirely to their comfort. We have created entertainment just for them. We have developed medicine specifically for their health. The data was staggering. Specialized food, toys, furniture, entire veterinary systems, grooming services, even vacation facilities for cats. They've achieved something no other predator in galactic history has accomplished, Chun announced. They have made their prey species willingly, enthusiastically devoted to their welfare. Near the deep current section, the trench devastator, a creature that fed on fear, was somehow producing sounds that seemed designed to comfort Mittens. The most terrifying predator in the galaxy was trying to make friends with a housecat. Admiral Zektar tried to focus on Chun's words, but he kept glancing down at Mittens. The cat was now sitting directly beside him, occasionally looking up with those calm green eyes. Zektar found himself thinking that the station's climate might be too cold for such a small creature. "This is impressive," he admitted slowly. "But manipulation of behavior is not the same as predation." Chun nodded. "You're absolutely right, Admiral. So let me show you the final piece." The hologram changed one more time. This time, it showed statistics that made several delegates gasp. "Human reproduction rates are directly influenced by cat ownership," Chun said. "Humans with cats are more likely to form stable partnerships, more likely to have children, and more likely to create the stable homes where cats thrive." The data was overwhelming. Cat-owning humans lived longer, worked harder to maintain their homes, and were more successful at raising offspring. "They haven't just trained humans to serve them," Chun concluded. "They've taken control of human reproduction itself. They have turned the most successful species on Earth into their personal breeding and resource-gathering operation." The hall fell silent as the implications sank in. "Every other apex predator kills its prey," Chun said quietly. "This apex predator convinced its prey to build civilization for it." Admiral Zektar looked down at Mittens, who was now purring softly. Without quite realizing it, the Admiral had started to gently scratch behind the cat's ears. "And the most remarkable part," Chun added, "humans are completely aware of what cats have done. We know we serve them. We know they've trained us. We know they manipulate us." She paused for effect. "And we love them for it." The biodome was completely silent. Around the hall, hundreds of the galaxy's most advanced beings stared at a small orange cat, who was now calmly grooming himself as if he owned the entire space station. Admiral Zektar looked down at his own clawed hand. He had been unconsciously petting Mittens for the last 5 minutes. When had that started? Why did it feel so natural? "Let me understand this correctly," said the crystalline collective representative, its diamond structure ringing with confusion. "This creature has achieved total dominance over your species without violence?" "Without the threat of violence," Chun confirmed. "Mittens has never needed to hurt a human to get what he wants. He simply makes us want to give it to him." The Vorthan delegate, master of creatures that existed between dimensions, studied Mittens with new interest. "The psychological manipulation, is that effective?" As if to answer, Mittens walked over to the Vorthan section. The dark, mysterious being who controlled reality-phasing predators found himself kneeling down to offer his hand for Mittens to sniff. When the cat rubbed against his robes, the Vorthan made a sound that might have been laughter. "How is he doing that?" The delegate whispered. "I can feel him influencing my behavior, but I cannot stop it." More disturbing, I do not want to stop it. Across the hall, similar scenes were playing out. The warrior delegates from the battle moons had somehow started discussing the best materials for cat furniture. The deep current representative was quietly asking Chun about whether cats needed special water. Even the BioBurns handler from the Molten Worlds was wondering if cats could be safely kept in high-temperature environments. "This is unprecedented," rumbled Delegate Core, though he kept his voice low so as not to startle Mittens. "A predator that makes its prey protective of it." "Not just protective," Chun corrected. "Devoted. There's a difference." She activated the holographic display one more time. This time, it showed the current scene in the biodome. Real-time brain scans of the various delegates revealed remarkable changes. "Look at your own neural activity," Chun said gently. "Every species here is showing elevated oxytocin levels, reduced stress hormones, increased protective instincts. And this is after less than 30 minutes of exposure. The hive consciousness delegates spoke with several voices at once, but they were quieter than usual. We are beginning to understand. This creature has evolved specifically to hack the common emotional responses shared by most intelligent species. Exactly, Chun agreed. While other predators evolved bigger claws or stronger poison, cats evolved something far more powerful. They learned to make themselves loved. Admiral Zektar tried to step away from Mittens, but the cat simply followed him. Every time Zektar moved, he found himself looking down to make sure he hadn't accidentally stepped on the small creature. When had that concern started? The implications, he said slowly, are staggering. Indeed they are, Chun agreed. But there's something else you should know. She gestured to the holographic display again. This time, it showed a map of human space, with small icons representing cats. Admiral, Mittens isn't alone. As I mentioned, Earth has over 1 billion of these apex predators. We've transported them to every human colony, every space station, every exploration ship. The delegates looked at the display with growing amazement. Cats were everywhere humans had gone in space. Furthermore, Chun continued with a small smile, cats reproduce much faster than humans do. A single pair can produce dozens of offspring in just a few years. The machine world's delegate calculated quickly. If they spread to other species at the same rate they spread among humans, within a century, Chun finished, there could be cats on every inhabited world in the galaxy. The hall erupted in whispers. Some delegates seemed excited by the prospect. Others looked worried. A few were already making plans. Admiral Zektar raised his hand for silence, though he had to be careful not to disturb Mittens, who had decided the Admiral's feet were the perfect place for a nap. This brings us to the vote, Zektar announced. We must decide whether this unique predator qualifies for apex status. Before anyone could respond, the representative from the Gas Giant Federation spoke up. Admiral, before we vote, I would like to make a formal request. Yes, Delegate Stormrider? The Gas Giant Federation would like to negotiate for cultural exchange programs with humanity. Specifically, we would like to acquire some of these cats for our own worlds. Immediately, half a dozen other delegates stood up with similar requests. The Crystalline Collective also requests breeding pairs. The Battle Moons would like to establish trade agreements. The Deep Current Systems offer exclusive mining rights in exchange for cats. Chun watched with amusement as the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy began bidding against each other for the right to be conquered by house cats. Admiral Zektar banged his gavel for order, though he was careful not to wake Mittens. We will address trade negotiations after the vote. Speaking of which, he looked around the hall at delegates who were now openly hoping to get cats of their own. All those in favor of granting apex predator status to the human submission? Every hand, claw, tentacle, and appendage in the hall went up instantly. The vote is unanimous, Zektar announced. Humanity has presented the most sophisticated apex predator in galactic history. A cheer went up from the delegates, though it was notably quieter than usual. No one wanted to startle Mittens. Furthermore, Zektar continued, in recognition of this achievement, the Galactic Council grants humanity premium trading status, access to all territorial expansion zones, and he paused, looking down at the sleeping cat. Special consideration for any future requests involving these remarkable creatures. Chun bowed formally. Humanity thanks the Council for this honor. But even as she spoke, she noticed something interesting. The delegates weren't really looking at her anymore. They were all watching Mittens, who had woken up and was now stretching in that particularly graceful way that cats had perfected. The Vorthan delegate leaned toward Chun. Ambassador, When you mention breeding pairs, would humanity be open to immediate negotiations? The crystalline collective representative chimed in harmony. We have rare metals that could be very valuable to humanity in exchange for just one pair. The battle moons offer military protection, added another delegate urgently. Chun smiled as she watched the most powerful beings in the galaxy compete for the attention of a small orange cat. I'm sure we can work something out, she said diplomatically. Though I should warn you, cats have their own opinions about where they want to live. They tend to choose their humans, not the other way around. At that moment, Mittens stood up, stretched once more, and walked back toward his carrier. But he paused at the entrance and looked back at the assembled delegates of the Galactic Council. His green eyes seemed to survey his new domain with quiet satisfaction. Then he stepped into his carrier and settled down for a nap. As if conquering the galaxy was just another ordinary day, Admiral Zektar looked around the biodome at hundreds of advanced beings, who were all hoping a small Earth predator might choose them as worthy servants. Meeting adjourned, he announced quietly. Then added under his breath, I should probably ask Ambassador Chun about the proper care and feeding of these creatures. For diplomatic purposes, of course. As delegates began to file out, most of them were making quiet inquiries about acquiring cats. None of them seemed to realize that they had just witnessed the most successful expansion of any predator in galactic history. And in his simple pet carrier, Mittens purred softly, already dreaming of a galaxy full of beings eager to open cans of tuna for him.